Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Hayes, and in today's short rant, I'm going to talk about the imminent liberation of Lyman, or finally an envelopment. And again, not to make light of war, I'm always very careful of this, but you shouldn't be eating popcorn and watching people die. But as this war's been going on, there just have not been a lot of maneuver, a lot of battles that are fought in the way you think of them, except, the Ukrainians did a great job with their offensive, and now this envelopment of Lyman is really kind of a master class in how to get the job done. So let's just go straight to some maps. Okay, I'm starting off here with a Google map, and Lyman is that dot there. Beautiful city of Lyman. When you look at it, they have pictures of the forest outside. So one of the key things about Lyman, it's in the Donetsk Oblast, right? It's part of what Russia is pretty much about to declare to annex, right? It's one of the two republics, Luhansk and Donetsk, right? And so this is the city, Donetsk city, and this is Luhansk. But Russia has been claiming, okay, we're liberating this area, right? And so it's very much part of what they want. It's also a rail hub, right? And so it was important, and it's by the city of, it's not far from the city of Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, which are important things for Russia to capture. And just to give you there's Kharkiv over here. Here is where the offensive took place. And so as we look at this area, though, right, the Russians have been here in Lyman for a while now, but we have a lot of rough terrain, right? There's the Severodonetsk River that runs through there, and right, there's the river that runs through, and about here is where they had that really disastrous river crossing a while back. And this is really rough terrain. The Ukrainians have been, their offensive took them to Izium. Here's the Oskil River. And basically, they've had kind of some open terrain around here that they've taken advantage of. But so what we have to do, just to orient ourselves, this is where the offensive was. Here's Sloviansk. Russians would like to take it. Russians are constantly attacking Bakhmut right here, right? This is a city that the Russians every day are attacking, haven't taken yet, as they try to move up here. And Lyman was really important as, it was their front line, and they were threatening Sloviansk. And then if you get Sloviansk, you get Kramatorsk, and you can roll up the positions. Let's take a look at some battle maps. Okay, now here we have a close-up of a map from the Institute of Study of War. That was Google Maps I was looking at before. This is a map from the Institute of Study of War. You can find all of their stuff at understandingwar.org. I hope it's okay. I'm using it. I gave you credit. Here we go. This is a map actually from September 23rd, right? And so you can see this is, after the offensive, the blue indicates areas that the Ukrainians have taken in their counteroffensive. Izium was the major city they liberated, and they're starting to push on the flank here. You can already sort of see it coming, but you'll see more later. By the way, Sloviansk is down here and Bakhmut is down there. Now, as we move forward, though, through this, we see some interesting stuff. By the 24th, we start seeing what's called a salient, right? The Ukrainians have pushed through here, and if you recall, the Oskil River comes down, right? And there's all the rough terrain around in front of Lyman, but these guys are moving around through some open terrain, getting around basically what would be the Russian right in Lyman. And we're starting to get a salient, and this is the beginning of the envelopment. That was September 24th. By September 25th, it's starting to really look like something. And this is when I started talking about it on TikTok. Because they said, ooh, here we go, an envelopment. And again, throughout the war, we've been watching the Russians supposedly getting ready to do double envelopments. And that was very much when they were in Izium and they were also down south in Bakhmut, right? The fear was that they were going to pull a double envelopment and trap all the Ukrainian forces that were in here, especially in the cities of Lyshansk and Severodonetsk. They never did it. They never could do it. They kept trying to do smaller and smaller envelopments. The Russians have been left to just kind of pound on the front door, conquer with artillery, and occupy the rubble. Well, the Ukrainians don't want to rubble. They can't do that. They don't have the firepower, and they don't want to do that. So now we're seeing this envelopment. Right, so here we are, September 25th, and this is when I was like, ooh, here we go. Not for, it doesn't matter, but for the record. Okay, now, 26, it continues on. We get a little bit more movement there. And by the 27th, it's expanding. And I believe our last picture here is what they posted last night, the 28th. Now, the key thing is, if you're in Lyman, right, there are these lakes here, right? The Ukrainians are all the way to the lakes, and they've got their, not to start the juvenile jokes, but they're in your rear. If you're the Russians, they're in the Russian rear. It's just the way we talk about these things. It's the military equivalent of the planet Uranus. Anyway, as these guys have been getting around the Russian, behind the Russian forces, that sounds better. They're really only leaving them this little avenue. And, if I just go back to the map, if we zoom in here, right, you see that you've got the river down here, you've got terrain, and I believe the Ukrainians are here, and you've really only got one decent road, right? Because these are the lakes that the Ukrainians are up there. So they're really not leaving them a very big escape route, right, to get to Crimea. And so if you're a Russian here, you need to get out of Dodge, right? You need to beat feet out of Dodge. That is the technical term for it in the military. And because you just don't have much, you just don't have much going on to defend yourself with. So that's what we're seeing here as of the 28th. And you're encircling the forces at Lyman. So what does this mean? All right. First of all, Lyman, it's moderately important, but like I say, it looks like it's going to be another defeat. They're going to send them scurrying. And the important thing that I've talked about it on TikTok. I haven't raised it to a short rant level, but the mill bloggers yesterday, ISW reported in its yesterday, last evening, that the mill bloggers in Russia are now alarmed. They're seeing it coming. And the ISW folks also, they keep track of what the Ministry of Defense is putting out. And they're like, hey, the Ministry of Defense has not been setting information conditions. That means starting a narrative and preparing conditions in which they can, in terms of public relations in the information space, right? It's the buzzword, soften the blow of this, right? So, and they've lost their chance, right? The mill bloggers have now already started talking about this. And so Russia is within its own information space. The Russian government is losing, right, control of the narrative. And so when this occurs, the mill bloggers will have been complaining about it and they won't have anything. And so this could lead to a bigger rift between the hardliners and the Kremlin. Or just it's just another log on the fire that's already burning, right? And that is going to be in itself interesting. When you look at Putin's support, there's a lot of focus in the press on the people, right? And how they're pissed off about the mobilization and, because we are Westerners and we think public opinion matters. However, the Kremlin watchers, the Russian hands will tell you, well, it's more the Siloviki. It's the important people in the government, especially in the parts of the government that are that use force, the security apparatus, whether that be the FSB, the intelligence services, or the army, or the military, the police and law enforcement, right? Those folks in those are the folks that do coups, right? And they do them. They have historically done them. They took out Beria and put Khrushchev in power after Stalin died, and then they took Khrushchev out and put Leonid Brezhnev in power, and they tried to take Gorbachev out. And in that failed coup, Boris Yeltsin stood on a tank and became the next president of the whole thing. So the key thing is that this might be another log on that fire. I think of more concern, though, is what effect it's going to have on the PR. Right now, Russia has a huge PR problem. They are facing a lot of unrest and a lot of conflicting reports about their mobilization. It's chaotic. They are doing it in a way that encourages the local officials. They've kind of designated a lot of control to local officials, giving them quotas, and they also are announcing, okay, these people are eligible. But the local folks, they get all the people that are eligible, but they still got a quota to fill. So they're pulling in other people, which is creating all sorts of disturbances in Russia with people being wrongfully mobilized. And that's what's eating up all the oxygen in the PR room, to the point that ISW thinks Putin might delay announcing the annexation of they just had this referendum. They think their assessment is he may delay the formal announcement because it's not going to have an impact. Right now, the mobilization has taken all the oxygen out of the room, so declaring these new provinces part of Russia won't have the PR boost that they're looking for, so they're delaying. Well, guess what? Another battlefield failure might complicate that. Now, maybe they could spin it to, oh, well, we need to go. The Westerners are doing this, but they really haven't set the conditions. The mill bloggers are ahead of them on reporting it. And so there is going to be, for Russia, a real problem with this, right? Now, they might slide their way out of it, but it partly depends on how bad it looks when they finally pull out, or in the next couple of days, what happens in Lyman may affect that. But this is something we want to watch, right? This is going to be a tactical defeat, a battlefield defeat, when Putin really doesn't need one. Thank you for watching my short rant. I hope it was short and not too much of a rant. I'm Dr. Dave Hayes, and though I teach at Troy University, this video is my own work. Troy University has neither approved nor reviewed the content. So there. And if you want to learn more about Troy anyway, figure out who would hire a guy like this, you can always go to www.troy.edu. I also am going to have a little card popping up here that you can go see my bio and some information about where I teach, which will descend to shameless self-promotion. But I want more students. What can I say? And finally, the music you've been listening to is Tonight at 8 by Shane Ivers. So thank you for listening, and I hope you'll come back and enjoy another short rant.